Welcome to another Giles and the Goalie live Facebook recap. Tonight, the Wild fell 4-2 to the Columbus Blue Jackets, and the uh, there's plenty of positives, and I can touch on those briefly. Zach Parise with a great hustle goal, Mikael Granlund with a great shot off of a great feed from Eric Stahl. Those were the highlights. uh, there was plenty of lowlights. But I'm just gonna jump right into it. We're gonna go right to talking about Devin Dubnyk. That was kind of the de facto topic of the night on Twitter, at least. And I have thoughts, being a goaltender. Uh, Dubnyk is struggling right now, and I don't think there's any question about that. But looking at his game tonight, it really wasn't that bad, actually. And I think that this team has had a little bit of a hangover tonight from the way that Arizona game ended. I think that there was plenty for them to be down about, and plenty for them to not be very proud of themselves for. So I think that a little bit of that carried over, and I think that there's such a fine line, and Dubnyk's inconsistency is well documented by me. I've resisted writing yet another article about his inconsistency because I think I've written one literally every season he's been here. But um, I think there's such a fine line between Dubnyk at the top of his game and Dubnyk not at the top of his game, which is where we find him now. That defensive lapses really kind of expose that. An example would be tonight. I don't feel like he allowed any soft goals. I think that all of those goals were, either well placed shots. The deflection goal was absolutely incredible. I don't think any goalies are stopping that necessarily, unless it's out of sheer luck. But that's just it. I think that when Dubnyk is at the top of his game and when he's really, really playing well, he's covering up those egregious defensive lapses. And right now, when he's struggling, he's not necessarily letting in a lot of soft goals. I mean, certainly the game winner against Arizona would qualify as kind of a soft goal, even though it was just a weird misplay by him. Um, but anyway, back to my point. I just don't think that uh, the defense is doing him any favors either, and so you kind of stuck in this situation where he's not at the top of his game, and the defense isn't at the top of their game, and that makes him look even worse by comparison because when the defense isn't at the top of their game but he covers a lot of that up. And when he isn't at the top of his game but the defense is, obviously that covers a lot of that up. But right now they're both not at the top of their game, and everyone's talking about Dubnyk. And I think there's some folks out there talking about how the defense is playing, um, but maybe not enough. And I mean, the Panarin goal was far and away the greatest example of that because Artemi Panarin is a player that you really can't forget about out there on the ice. I mean, he's that dangerous. And Giles on Twitter put it best, where it looked like there's five wild players, five Danny Heatleys out there, and I think it was Russo that said there's five wild players in concrete. Um, that's just kind of what you're getting. And it's not constant. It's not like the Wild are playing an absolutely abysmal defensive game right now, but they're playing with just enough uh, lack of focus, just enough defensive lapses to where they're getting exposed on occasion. And, Dubnyk not being, the Devin Dubnyk of October, not standing on his head on a nightly basis, is really kind of exacerbating that because, it's making the situation look a lot worse than it really is, I think. And so while everyone's gonna fall over themselves calling for Alex Stalock to start, I don't disagree with that. I think that a lot of stuff with Dubnyk is mental. It's similar to Darcy Kemper, and if you've listened to the podcast, you've heard my criticisms of Bob Mason before, where I don't think he's great at pulling the psychological end out of goaltending, even though it appears he's a goalie coach and knows what he's doing. The Wild have been blessed with great goaltending virtually their entire time here, but uh, it just seems like there's always a groundswell for Alex Stalock to start, for any backup to start when the starter struggles, and I just don't think that Dubnik is struggling bad enough to where we need to see an extended Alex Stalock a look. By all means, start Alex Stalock on Saturday. I don't think that that's really a horrible idea, but to stoke the flames of any kind of goalie controversy right now, I think is a little bit premature. Devin Dubnik has, had some flashes of some great play tonight. He definitely kept the game closer than it probably should have been, given how the Wild played defensively. And credit to the Blue Jackets. They're a very talented team. They're a very fast team, as Russo pointed out almost right away in the game. And they got their chances, and they played pretty well. And it's kind of terrifying to think about how good that team would be if they weren't coached by John Tortorella. Uh, so there's that. But um, to wrap up on Dubnik, I think that we're going to see some good play out of him. I think we're seeing flashes of it. I think he's always just that. It's that minutia that is always just a half a step away from him being bad Dubnik versus great Dubnik, and I think that he's just kind of in the throes of that right now, on the cusp of that right now. So I'm not super worried. I know he was topic du jour tonight, but I think that while he has struggled, it hasn't been anything. Nobody even really noticed him struggling until about last week, and his numbers in November have been awful. So that just kind of goes to show you that it hasn't really, the eye test hasn't really bared it out, and even the stats haven't really, completely thrown him under the bus until about the last week, where he's had some pretty bad games. Um, but I think if you look at the same statistics, you're going to see that the Wild's expected goals are probably worse in those games as well. So the defense is really kind of scuffling right now. Uh, we'll see, if there's anything to that. But they did just shake up the top four not too long ago, and that who knows, that could be a factor to it. Anyway, that's my thoughts on Dubnik. I know I tend to defend goaltending at every possible opportunity, but that's just where I'm at on him right now. I think that he is struggling, but I don't think that it's anything we need to really worry about. I do think the defense is struggling too, and that's not something you need to worry about long term, but I think both parties will eventually pull out of it, and you'll see kind of that ebb and flow that you see with the season. Um, Other than that, this game is a forgettable one. Not as heartbreaking as Tuesday night, but disappointing for sure. But I think the Wild aren't that far off. They just need to shore up some things, and hopefully they can get some offense going, especially from their depth. So we'll see how that goes. Anyway, thanks for listening to my ranting goaltender defending diatribe. Thanks for listening to our podcast this week. We will have better audio quality this week. We promise. We have taken the necessary steps to ensure that. This week we'll be in a fancy studio. So look forward to that. Look forward to more pre-games from Giles. Look forward to more post-games from me if you're into that sort of thing. And we will talk to you later.